a government that's relentlessly going after you in this way can do a lot of damage, and it's not so easy to stand up to them. And so this is where again I worry a lot about the next 3.5 years. And I keep coming back to the fact we're only 6 months in. Now, hopefully, there are a lot of setbacks. There's public dissatisfaction. The institutions that stand up get supported in court by the courts. And Trump, hopefully we've seen the worst of it. Hopefully the
Really?
pace of damage slows down. But I don't think we can be confident of that.
Sometimes Trump policies get overturned in court, but sometimes now the Trump administration has done its own reversals. The OMB that had halted payments to the National Institutes of Health for researchers across the country, within the same 24-hour cycle, they said, no, 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 we're going to restore this because they'd been lobbied by Congress, by patient advocacy groups. The same thing happened with funding and information from the Pentagon that used to go to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and Pentagon said, no, we're not going to share it anymore. And now they say we're going to be sharing this information again. Obviously, this was in the wake of Texas floods. So without acknowledging any wrongdoing, they're sort of sneaking it in under the radar and saying, yeah, yeah, we're going to restore this information or these funds. Is this what we're looking at? Is 3.5 years more of backpedaling, or is this all going to be subject to who's pushing the buttons, or as you say, who's calling Trump and 2 o'clock in the morning among his buddies saying, hey, lighten up on this?
I mean, I'm happy to see some backpedaling. I'm happy to see a tiny bit of congressional resistance. I'm happy to see resistance from outside groups, but we're also seeing an awful lot of accommodation and timidity on the outside. And I fear that, again, it will get worse before it gets better. The executive branch of the United States government is powerful, as you know, in a whole bunch of areas. And when it decides to go after other institutions in a serious way, sometimes there's a big reaction, and then members of Congress get upset and they pull back a little. But the amount of damage that's been done, for example, at NIH, even though they're pulling back a little, the amount of damage that's been done, obviously abroad with AID and stuff. But I mean, I'm here in Washington, near Washington, so I see this maybe a little more closely. The whole federal government uh, it is not going to be the government we had. I mean, if Trump has a bad midterm and then if Trump Republicans either turn away from Trump or lose badly in 2028 or both, and a good Democrat, someone I would like, takes over, he is going to have a very difficult job in 2029. He is not inheriting the way we're used to people. Clinton came in after Bush and Bush after Clinton and Obama after, and they inherited a government that had its problems, but that was, functional, and 95% of the people pivoted and decided they would understood they would carry out the policies of the new government. The new government had policies that were within the broad mainstream, and Congress had a big say. So a lot of policies were negotiated. We're in a very different world. I mean, the degree to which the key agencies like the Justice Department, Homeland Security, have been weaponized, and decent people. I know so many people at Justice. They wanted to stay. They thought they could help make things better. They've been there for 10, 15, 20 years. They're committed to being, they've turned down many job offers, more lucrative law firms. They wanted to stay, and now they can't take it. I mean, it's just they don't want to be part of it. I mean, it's terrible what they're doing, and they won't make the arguments in court that the Trump administration wants them to make. Those people are leaving. Trump's changing the civil service rules. He's going to bring in a whole bunch. They're bringing in a huge number of loyalists in some of these agencies. I mean, the damage is going to be hard to turn around. So I'm worried. I think 3.5 more years of this is going to do damage. I hope there are more backward steps, as you were saying, compared to the forward steps. But I'm afraid they've still got an awful lot of momentum going in the forward direction, and not enough big institutions are standing up to them.
It sounds like we will need our own Marshall Plan for democracy if the opportunity ever presents itself. You
Mhm.
speak of timidity. Just today, Brown University agreed to pay $50 million and to clean up its act when it comes to DEI. We saw that Columbia, $200 million. People are, in a sense, paying the ransom to get back into the game. There are lots of words you can use to describe it, but these two are institutions which, because they are at the top of the ladder, the judgment must be in the Trump administration. If we can get these guys to knuckle under, everybody else will follow suit.
And I'm afraid that, they're bullies, and bullies do have an instinct often for where the weaknesses are, and they go after them. Then if you can get a few people to go along with your bullying, then a lot of other people think, well, I guess I can't really stand up. I mean, if Columbia and Brown can't stand up. Now, the good news is smaller colleges and universities don't have the money to pay that kind of money to the government, and maybe they just kind of float below the radar. But I think the success of the bullying, relative success with universities, law firms, business, and the failure to stand up. I mean, I think universities, honestly, some of them, they're under a lot of pressure, obviously, but there are much more powerful businesses and others that are also not standing up and incidentally, they could band together, right? I mean, someone said to me, it's a problem of collective action, Bill. You don't understand, this is a political science term, a social science term. You don't understand. It's hard for them to coordinate. And it's like, really? Don't they have things like the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable, and the universities have big associations, and they can coordinate if they want to coordinate to fight. But this is where a government that's relentlessly going after you in this way can do a lot of damage, and it's not so easy to stand up to them. And so this is where again I worry a lot about the next 3.5 years. I keep coming back to the fact we're only 6 months in. Now, hopefully, there are a lot of setbacks. There's public dissatisfaction. The institutions that stand up get supported in court by the courts. And Trump, hopefully we've seen the worst of it. Hopefully the
Really?
pace of damage slows down. But I don't think we can be confident of that.
Is it because people have figured out where they can push back, where it's going to have the most effect, or has the Trump administration essentially, shot off all the barrels it promised it would?
So I mean, that is a very good question. I don't know, and I think a lot will depend on what people do. I think we're still at, look, it's only 6 months in, and so one can imagine scenarios where finally some Republicans in Congress say this is too much. The public really rises up. The people who are on the boards of businesses and universities and civic institutions say this is unacceptable. People in the government say it's unacceptable. But again, they knew what they were doing. They had a plan. They really want to, change things, and they feel no compunctions about using any methods. I just the degree to which we have a government that is now, relentlessly trying to bully other institutions, change the internal workings of the government, obviously, Justice Department and so forth, but also relentlessly bully external organizations, including states and localities. So look at LA. I mean, if Karen Bass doesn't think she needs the National Guard or Marines in LA and doesn't want ICE doing the kinds of activities they're doing, and the governor doesn't want them doing it, and the city council of LA doesn't want them doing it, why are they doing it? I mean, there's no, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what's striking to me. And they've, look, I respect the mayor and the governor, and they're pushing back, and there's some court cases and so forth. But I've got to say that so far the pushback hasn't been, I'm not blaming them. It's just that they're in a weaker position, perhaps. But the federal government can be powerful when it really goes down this path, unfortunately.
Next week, we have Madeline Brand talking with Jonathan Weissman about American anti-Semitism, being Jewish in the age of Trump, a topic we just touched on briefly here. And after that, Ron Brownstein with Larry Mantle about life during wartime, politics in an age of convulsion. You can get the newsletter, follow everything that we are doing here. I'm Pat Morris, and I thank you so much for joining us this evening.